Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to welcome you to this space for real conversations about how we live, how we show up day in and day out, because the quality of our life is shaped by our habits. What we do in ordinary time allows us to be extraordinary. We can unpack what it takes to truly live well and be well in real life. Welcome to Life by Design. And I'm just so excited that you're here. I had the privilege, the joy of being able to interview Scott Clary. Now, he is someone that I have followed on social media for such a long time. He drops these insights, these ideas that aren't necessarily new, but how he frames them is so useful. So, like all things, if you just put your ask out there, sometimes those things come to pass. So, this was my first encounter with Scott. I hope it's one of many. And I hope you find this useful in terms of what it takes to be successful, both personally and professionally, but mostly professionally in that space around content creation and building habits and systems that work for you. So, this is my first, again, I hope, of many conversations with Scott. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to Scott. Oh my goodness, Scott, I have been following you on social media for such a long time, and you
Thank you.
just drop these yes, Scott. When I see some of the things that you share, you bring such clarity to a space that is so noisy, but you are this solid through line. And I'm just so excited to have you on the show today and to introduce you to the listeners. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me on. And I appreciate it. And I love your work too. And I love your podcast. And this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I feel like we're going to have a hard time keeping this under 3 hours, but
Okay, so for folks who don't know your work yet, I don't know if there are very many who don't know your work, but for some folks who might have not come across your work yet, could you tell us just a wee bit, Scott, about what you do and just that intersection in terms of how you show up and all of the, your podcast, all the things? I'd love to hear about it.
so a lot of the work that I do is really for myself. I'm at this point in my life a full-time content creator. So I podcast, I write a newsletter, I post
Mhm.
a whole bunch of short little thoughts on social media. I do long form interview style podcasts where I interview people kind of like this. A lot of
Yes.
probably mutual friends that we've had
Mhm.
on the show. I just enjoy creating content, but I create content for myself. I write for myself. All the interviews I do, I am just interested in an entrepreneur or a thought leader trying to unpack their wisdom, trying to
Mhm.
figure out how they've succeeded in their life, in their domain, and hopefully, if it's useful for me and interesting for me, it'll be interesting for the audience. But I think that's really where I come from. When I first started content creating, I was still building a company. My background's in tech,
Mhm.
and my first version of content was I just want to create content that I find interesting and I
Yeah.
find useful for the season of the life that I'm in.
Mhm.
And if I do that repeatedly, then over time, I'm going to sort of find a group or a community of like minded people. And that's what I've
Mhm.
been doing for the past 6 years.
Yeah. And I appreciate that so much because one of the things, there are so many threads in the work that you do and the focus that you have that I would love to pull on and unravel because what you're doing is you're taking relatively complex ideas
Mm.
around performance, around resiliency, around production, creation, all these things. And you are just bringing this radical clarity to it. And you're sharing wisdom, right? You're sharing hard earned lessons and wisdom in so many different formats. And what I absolutely love about it is it's so accessible. It's accessible and you're capturing something that you're absolutely right. For sure, it's benefiting you. And I love that about that kind of, I look at this from a curiosity lens. And then if
Mhm.
it's useful for me, I share it to someone else. But you are pulling through, there's just so much noise out there, but you just keep pulling out these gems that allow us to have clarity. So could you
Well, I
tell us just
appreciate that.
a little bit about how do you do that?
Uh,
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, the easy answer is that I've been doing it for over 6 years now.
Mm.
So I think that after a while, you do get very good at communicating and
Yes.
understanding which ideas land and which ideas hit. And because, listen, everything that we're going to talk about today, everything that's been discussed on every episode you've put out, and every
Mhm.
episode that I've ever put out, or every newsletter that I've ever written, or every tweet that I've ever tweeted or X'd or whatever you call it now, um, these are not new ideas,
Right.
None of them are new ideas. These ideas are ideas that have been regurgitated and
Hmm.
retaught and thought through by various prolific
Yeah.
thinkers for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Yeah. Totally.
And I think that the ability to communicate them is what hopefully differentiates some of my content. So
Yeah.
understanding this idea is impactful. This idea is real to me because I've experienced it, I've learned it, I've lived through it, I've applied this idea. This idea has had contact with
Hmm.
reality in my life. And now let me communicate it in a way that makes sense to me, not just some esoteric, uh, uh, sort of high level version of this idea, but an idea that I've lived through. And let me tell a story, which is
Yes.
obviously a great way to communicate that reinforces this idea. Now, whether or not that's through like first person lived experience or it's unpacking wisdom from somebody that's built, I've had founder of Netflix, founder of
Hmm.
Reebok. I've had
Yeah.
Seth Godin, who's a great author and also probably one of the best storytellers I've ever met on the show, and couple hundred others. So
Yes.
whether or not it's my ideas, it's ideas that I've uncovered I've found in other people that I look up to. It's really just about finding a way to communicate them, and I think that that's really what social media is good for, right? It gives you a platform. Oh, see, the whole family woke up. But this is what I've done on social media. So I take
Yeah.
these ideas that have really impacted my life the most,
Yeah.
and I think for content creators out there, I think that's a really smart place to start. So
Mhm.
find the ideas that resonate the most with you, because if they resonate the most with you, there's a good chance they're going to resonate with a whole bunch of other people as well. And uh, and that is my sort of idea accumulation process. That is my content creation process. And over the past 6 years, I found a way to communicate them through different mediums, right? Through
Yeah.
podcasting, through newsletter, through short form tweets. And it's not just these ideas that have been around for, you know, the balance of time.
Yes.
It is finding a way as a content creator to communicate them in a meaningful way that, when somebody sees them, they just stop and pause and they're
Yeah.
like, I've heard this idea 1,000 times, but for whatever reason, this is the one way that it's actually sort of spoke to me and
Hmm.
it's gotten me to pause for a moment.
Yeah.
And that's a strategic content creator side of my work. So it's
Right.
both. It's being
Yeah.
interested and it's putting in the reps in the actual content creation so that what you study and what you learn, it doesn't just fall flat, which is actually what I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have trouble with.
Hmm.
And I'm going to make a point because you're in academia and you do a lot of research.
I'm
I've interviewed
recovering academia, but yes,
recovering
yeah.
academia.
I'm just kidding. Sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no, that's
Yeah.
fine. I think that um, there's a lot of very smart people out there that have a really hard time communicating their ideas, and I
Yes.
think that that's something, the content creation side, not to make light of the research and
Hmm.
the effort that goes into really well thought out um, arguments. But
Hmm.
I think that there's something to be said for someone like I'm trying to think of oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name right now. Adam, who is the human psychologist, the business organizational psychologist,
Adam
who
Grant.
Adam Grant. Adam
Yeah.
Grant. Sorry, I blanked on his
Oh, I
last
love
name.
trivia. We can play all day.
No, no, no. I
It
shouldn't. I shouldn't
sounds
blank on
like.
his last name, but it's
Yeah.
it's
No.
been a busy morning. But
Yes.
Adam Grant, he does a lot of research. There's a
Yes.
lot of other organizational psychologists whose work is not known,
Yes.
but Adam Grant is great at communicating it in a
Yeah.
certain way. So it's
Yeah.
not just knowing the thing, it's finding a way to communicate it. And in my world, my job is to do that on
Yeah.
social media with content.
And you do it beautifully. Like, you do it with just such power, and it was interesting because when I came across your material, I noticed, because 'cause I'm that, person, I screen grab and green grab, and your content was in my folder called Knowledge Translator. So, I literally
Oh,
was just like, "He's a knowledge translator." Like, he's taking these big ideas, these concepts, but he's saying them in such a way that, as you said, just is like, bam, like, yeah, that makes sense. And even recently, the post you were talking about around, being okay in the discomfort. And one of the things that
mm,
I talk about in my research about human resiliency and performance is, it's our how fast can you adapt to the discomfort? It's not how fast do I like bounce back to good or get back myself into the right mindset or right headspace. It's literally like, how can I get to a place where I'm okay in discomfort and recognize as you talk about, like, can you commit to an idea for 10 years? Like, can you
Yeah.
really fully lock in and dialed in and be able to take lots of those no's, that rejection, that exploration, and just like keep showing up? And again, I very much think of you as that knowledge translator and you're doing it better than anyone I've come across. So
Well, you're
just
very
like
kind. But these are ideas
very
that have
good.
worked for me. These
Yeah.
ideas have actually worked in my life.
Yes.
So we can talk about that idea. That
Yeah.
idea has actually been top of mind, the 10-year idea and the discomfort idea. We can talk about those if you want.
Yeah.
So the idea that you're referencing, I mean, I've spoken about this in a variety of different ways. One thing that I speak about often is comfort and discomfort,
Yes.
and somebody's ability to sit in discomfort
Mhm.
being a signal, and sort of like a leading indicator of their success, right?
Yes.
So if somebody is able to be discomfort, it's to just not sit in a comfort zone, to put themselves into modes of discomfort for an extended
Yeah.
period of time, there's a really good chance they're going to be successful. Now,
100%.
this pairs well with something else that I like to speak about, which is a 10-year rule. So,
Mhm.
if you want to take on anything, if you want to build anything, if you want to build a company, if you want to have a meaningful relationship, if you want to lose weight in the gym and you want to achieve a certain desired, body or whatever
Yeah.
your physical goal is, um, when you first start, just commit to that thing for 10 plus years. Say,
Mhm.
I'm going to commit to this thing. I'm going to play the long game. I'm going to
Yeah.
do this for an extended period of time. And when you do that, I think it sets you up. It sets
Mhm.
your mindset up, first of all. So it sets you up psychologically
Yeah.
to understand that this thing's going to take longer than you expect it to.
Mhm.
But it also allows you to set up the rest of your life to support this long-term goal.
Yes.
So if you are going to, for example, go to the gym and you haven't gone to the gym in 5 or 10 years, and you want to go to the gym and you want to lose weight, well, if you assume that getting your ideal body is going to be a 5 to 10 plus year process,
Mhm.
well, then you aren't going to the gym 7 days a week in January and burning out and then not
Yes.
going February 1st, right? You are
Yeah.
staying in the gym, you're figuring out a cadence or a schedule that
Mhm.
works. Same goes for if you're building a business. If you assume
Yes.
that building a business will take 10 plus years, great. What does that mean? Well, it means that you probably can't quit your job yet because you're
Mhm.
assuming that it's going to be successful maybe in the 7 to 10 year mark where it starts
Yes.
to pull in some money and you can actually pay yourself enough
Mhm.
where your lifestyle isn't compromised. Um, and it also pushes back against this sort of overnight success, immediate
Yes.
gratification culture that we live in. So I think that when we set ourselves up for long-term goals, long-term milestones, this 10-year goal, this 10-year vision in anything, it sets the proper expectations, and it
Mhm.
just I've even said, and I've gotten a lot of pushback on this, but I'm going to speak to it as well, and I want to get your opinion on it. Actually,
Sure.
I've gotten pushback because it seems like an oversimplistic idea. If you commit 10 years of your life to something, I've gotten a lot of angry people on social media say, well, that's a survivorship bias. Just
Mhm.
because you do something for 10 years and it's worked out for you, it doesn't work out for everyone else. And then I'll say, well, I'm not saying do something that doesn't work for 10 years.
Exactly.
I'm saying that if you commit 10 years to this thing and you move outside of your comfort zone and you try things, and some of the things you fail at, but some of the things do succeed,
Yeah.
and you learn from your failures and you iterate and you improve and you optimize. I've said repeatedly over a 10-year period, the chance of your success, which traditionally in entrepreneurship, which is what a lot of my audience is, in
Yes.
entrepreneurship, the chance of success is quite low if you look at like statistics,
Mhm.
right? So if you're going to
Yeah.
be an entrepreneur, the chance of building a successful business that, you know, makes $1 million a year or five
Mhm.
million dollars a year is incredibly low. Forget, building $100 million plus,
Yes.
or something, like a unicorn or something that's going to compete with Mark Zuckerberg or an Elon
Yes.
Musk, like even just making like a 7 figure business, the chance of you failing, quote unquote, is like whatever, 90, 95
Yeah.
percent plus. But I argue that if you find a way to stay in the game for 10 plus years, it's actually very difficult to fail
Yeah.
because you will find a way to make it work. I don't know a lot of people that have actually done one thing, and again, learning and trying and failing and iterating and improving, but they have one goal they've pursued for 10 plus years where they haven't been some level of incredibly successful at that thing,
Yeah.
just through the compounding effect of cumulative knowledge over time.
Yes.
you become a version of successful at that thing. And I think that that idea pisses a lot of people off because it seems overly simplistic,
Mhm.
and it makes it so that whatever they want to achieve is actually not chance or luck,
Yes.
or it's just entirely based on their own ability to sit in it for an extended period of time, which then, I mean, you'll understand this as well. It moves the locus of control in their life from
Mhm.
external to internal.
Yeah, without
And
a
that's
doubt.
really uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll ask you, is that something that you've seen with performance,
Mhm.
with like high performers from almost like a uh, recovering academic, from like a science-based,
Yes.
peer-reviewed,
Yes.
uh, data-based approach, or
Yeah.
if you look into the data, is that something that actually holds true?
Without a doubt it is, and there's so many different, like, threads to pull as to the why
I
of
know.
it, but, like, you're absolutely on course, and essentially what we know is that repetition is the key to any form of mastery.
Mhm.
So, the question you would be asking yourself is, the problems that you are facing in your business or this trajectory you're trying to create, is the problem that you're having in year 1 the same problem that you're having in year 4? If that's the case, then you're actually not growing, right?
Of
Like you're
course, yeah.
literally spinning your tires and you're just doing kind of repetitive performance without review and around without any adapting or learning or application of the new knowledge. But if you can say with a degree of confidence that each year I'm learning, I am reflecting, I'm getting coached, right? And that's the thing I feel so many folks, especially in the entrepreneurial space, think that they have to figure it out by themselves.
Mhm.
When you add a coach to the game, and you know what? Maybe you don't need a coach in year 1. You might need a coach in year 6, 7, and 8, and 9 that are going to level you up in a way that you weren't ready for in year 1, but year 5, you're ready for it. And again, it's applying the information, it's the lessons learned. But I would also argue it's also the connections and the networks that you build along the way.
For
And
sure.
again, what I look like, for example, in my own career at year 1 versus where I am at year 5, it's remarkably different. I've been committed to the same overarching goal, but my strategies, my process, how I've adapt has
Mhm.
radically transformed over that time. So personally and professionally, I can say there's a lot of value and a lot of research that backs up what you're suggesting with the 10-year principle.
I will mention a couple things. So first of all, you said it's not just about doing the same thing over and over again, which is actually the definition of insanity.
Insanity. Yes.
Yeah, that's the actual definition of insanity. But so yeah, so be rigid in what you want to achieve and be flexible in your process. And
Mhm.
I think that quote's been passed around a few different times, various versions of that quote, but that's a really important idea as well. I also think that you touched on something that I don't speak about often, but I've definitely felt it in my own life. If you just if you just stay in the game long enough, and the thing that you're building starts to become your identity, and you start to speak about, and by the way, that could be a whole other conversation about how much of your work should be your identity or
Yes.
not, but
Yes.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole yet. Let's just say that your work starts to become your identity, and there's various degrees of work being identity that's healthy and not healthy, but it will
Mhm.
become a bit of your identity.
Of course.
You'll start speaking about it, people will know about it, and people will naturally want to help you. Like,
Yes.
if you just talk about this at enough dinners and at enough events,
Mhm.
somebody will know someone who
Yes.
will help you, or who will give you a piece of advice, or will know
Yeah.
somebody who knows someone who can take your career to the next level. This is how life
100%.
works. People
Yes.
always want to help you.
Yes.
So you can have a coach, you
Mhm.
can have friends that are also, entrepreneurial, or you should all I mean, so many cliches, but I do believe you should have friends that are building, and friends that are
100%.
pushing themselves, and
Yeah.
friends that are holding you to a higher standard. And by the way, in everything. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to have we talk about entrepreneurship, I try and make it sort of more palatable for people that aren't building a company. If you want to have a successful relationship, you should not just have single friends. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to have a successful marriage if like 9 out of 10 of your friends are single partying every weekend.
Yeah.
If you
100%.
want to have a great physique, you should have friends that go to the gym. They don't
Mhm.
have to do the same workout that you do, but you should have friends that care about health, wellness, food. If you want to
Yeah.
build a business, if you want to advance your career, you have to have ambitious friends that are
Yeah.
always trying new things and pushing boundaries. And this is the group you have to surround yourself with. And when you surround yourself with these people, you can get formal coaching.
Yeah.
You can get this mentorship that is almost like peer mentorship as well.
Yes.
But the people that are highly ambitious, that are true friends, what they can do is they can help you hold up a mirror to
Yes.
what you're doing in your life. And when you have this circle of people around you, which if you are comfortable putting yourself out there and speaking about what you're working on, these people will naturally gravitate towards you because
Mhm.
they look at you as somebody who they want to bring into
Yes.
their life as well. Um, but then these people will start they'll start pointing out things that aren't working and that you're doing
Mhm.
repeatedly and you're not seeing results with.
Yeah.
This is why having that circle is so important. It's not just that you're going to be successful through osmosis.
Yes.
People that like my friends in my life, they'll ask me, how's the podcast doing? Like,
Mhm.
how's it growing? How much money are you making? Why aren't
Yeah.
you booking bigger guests?
Yeah.
Like, I've seen you kind of put up the same content. Your content's getting kind of,
Mhm.
tired after a little bit. Like, try something new. And they'll say, like, I just talked to this person, he wants to come on your show.
Yes.
Or I just have this corporate contact, they want to sponsor your show. Or
Mhm.
I've been studying content because my friend does marketing for X big podcast, and this is what they're trying now. You should try it. Like,
Yeah.
these are regular conversations that I'll have with the people just when I'm shooting the shit with them at dinner, right?
Yeah.
So, all of these ideas are important. It's not
Mhm.
like just one of them is going to take you to the next level, whatever it is that next level is that you want to achieve. But uh, yes, everything you mentioned, all those
Mhm.
different threads, completely valid. And from personal experience, and from not just personal experience, every idea that we just sort of touched on and discussed, these are ideas that basically everybody who, and I consider, when I look at who's successful,
Mhm.
define success in a variety of different ways, but
Yes.
who's successful, the person who's literally sitting across from me when I'm interviewing them and they sold a company for, 100 million,
Mhm.
500 million. They've built several companies. Now they're on paper billionaire. Like, I've
Yeah.
had these conversations with these individuals.
Mhm.
These ideas hold true with them as well. So these
100%.
are
Yeah.
universal success principles, and there's a
Yeah.
few others as well. Like, when I mentioned locus of control,
Mhm.
and that because it bleeds into the conversation about agency and
Yes.
ownership.
Mhm.
Whether or not you're talking to Jocko Willink, who speaks about
Mhm.
ownership from like a military
Yes.
background, all these ideas are what make anybody.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. Success is
Yeah.
never complicated. It's
Mhm.
just a lot of hard work.
Yeah, 100%. I appreciate and you just again all of the perspective that you are sharing and I echo that sentiment that the circle of influence that you have in
Mhm.
terms of who's around you. One of the expressions I use with my inner circle with this stuff is that we don't goal alone, right?
Yeah,
Like everybody knows what each other's goals are and we are in like when we're face to face, we might even be a little bit hard on each other around calling stuff
as you
out,
should.
pointing out some blind spots. But when we're in rooms that they're not in, we're their biggest cheerleaders. We're like,
Yeah,
you know what the next step would be for this? And, I'm giving those referrals. I'm doing absolutely everything I can in my power and agency to support the people around me. And again, face to face or, side by side, we might be giving each other a pretty hard time. But when I'm in rooms that they're not in, those are the people that I am advocating for and championing for because
yeah.
nobody can do this alone.
No,
And I think
and
again,
nobody
another
does.
concept that you introduced that's so valuable in your shares is as that kind of piece around where the ego falls into the conversation. And that's just such we're in our own way so often.
We
And
are.
again,
Yeah,
that idea, and when people ask me often in my work on resiliency and performance, they're like, Robyne, what does it take? And I said, it's the boring stuff. Like there are no hype cycles, there are no quick fixes. If any of these products that people are trying to sell you worked, it'd be a terrible business model because it'd probably only work once if their claims were true and you would never buy
mhm,
it again, right? Like this is just noise. You have to find the music. Like you have to find your people, you have to find your own rhythm. You have to figure out what makes sense for you with your own skills, talents and gifts and then be willing to put the reps in.
that's it,
And
right?
again, so I
Yeah.
appreciate your perspective on this in such a deep way.
Well, I appreciate you bringing some of these ideas up because they're all very important, and this is why I've said it, but I'll say it again. Like, being successful, however you want to define success, and you should define success in ways that are not just monetary,
100%.
because if you for most people, they just want to, if they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to build a business, but they want to make a little bit of money too. They want to create
Yeah.
something that generates value to the world that eventually, sets them up for life. So great. You can achieve that, but make sure that when you define success, it doesn't mean that you're just building a business and you've,
Mhm.
forgotten about your family and you've forgotten about your kids and you've forgotten about your friends and you've forgotten about your physical and mental and spiritual health or whatever is important to you. When you define success and you get after it and you start to incorporate some of these ideas in your life and you start to study people who have not just like sold a course on Instagram, but built like a
Yeah.
real business, you'll find that they echo a lot of these ideas as well.
Yeah.
Um, but you'll also realize that there's a few ideas that will help you get to where you want to go, but there's not like unlimited amount of ideas. There's not
Mhm.
unlimited amount of mental models and frameworks. There's not unlimited amount of things that you can try to get a company off the ground. There's not unlimited exercises that you can do to lose weight in the gym.
Yeah.
Like there's a few. There's a few
Mhm.
you got to figure out. There's a few tactical things. There's a few
Yeah.
mindset things, and then you just got to put in the reps and do it. And it's not that's the thing. Success is not complicated.
Mhm.
It's just hard work.
Yeah. And the discipline, right? That difference between
Well,
that
that's
motivation
yeah.
that sparks an idea and the discipline to
That's
actually
why I don't like
follow through.
motivation.
Yeah, 100%. The research shows from a neurological perspective, it only lasts between 30 and 60 seconds. And the
Is
root
that true?
origin of
Oh my god.
motivation is to spark an idea, and it's the
Mm,
discipline that follows through. So motivation, the whole kind of notion around it is simply it's simply popcorning an idea. It's trying to activate your nervous system to get excited with novelty. So
mm,
motivation is actually really linked to the same brain centers as novelty. So it's just meant to get us like, hey, that would be cool. And then the discipline is the again, the routine, the habits, the rituals that we build
and you
that
decide yeah.
allow it. Yeah, that
And but if
allows
you
it to happen.
again, if you sort of like all these ideas bleed into each other, by the way. They're
Totally.
not living in silos. So if you adopt this 10-year mindset and you understand that I knew motivation was useless. I didn't know it was that useless, but
Very useless.
very
Well, serves a
useless.
purpose.
Um, if you understand that motivation is not going to get you to where you want to go, then realize, okay, I have to do this thing for 10 years. It's not going to be motivation and waking up every morning and being excited about it that's going to get me there. So,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Well, that means that I probably have to design my life and I have to
Yeah.
architect my life. So, taking action and doing the thing and 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 working I have to architect my environment
Yes.
and the life so that it's easier to do the action and take the action than to not,
Yeah.
because motivation is not going to force me to wake up and call 100 people or send 100 emails or go to the gym every single morning. It's not
Yeah.
going to be motivation, but environment can do that.
Yeah, and Scott, if I could riff off that idea, I just
Yeah,
did a
yeah.
mastermind recently because as a behaviorist, I'm obviously very keen on habits. And we were talking about the importance of systems, right? Like, what are your systems? What is your environment? Because again, it's not hard to figure that out. But again, it's just that consistency of showing up. And I was working with this group in this mastermind, and they came up with these, oh my gosh, Scott, these were elaborate systems. Like, these were like, these are the systems that they were going to do. And I
But no one's
paused
going
and
to do them.
I said to them, I said, so, and they said, Robyne, what's your system? And I showed them my system and they're like, are you kidding? And I'm like, no, no, no. It's literally, I kid you not, it's on a post it note where it's what's one thing I can do for my body today? What's one thing I can do for my heart? And what's
Mm,
one thing I can do for my mind? And if I can literally use a post it note and say, okay, what's one thing I'm doing intellectually today? Usually that's something related to my work. It's even moments like this where I can meet amazing humans and have real conversations. Boom, I'm inspired, right? My head is in the game. Something for my heart, it's an act of service, right? Can I
mm.
do one thing today? Maybe it's a reaching out to a friend and say, like, hey, I got you. I'm rooting for you, right? And then again, something for my body, right? I will not miss a 30-minute walk no matter how complicated my day is. And so again, they had these master blueprints, okay, of these very complicated systems. And I said to them, the reason why I've been able to do this system so successfully is because it works on bad days. I can do these things even on the worst day, worst weather, worst emotions. Even if I'm going through something major, stressor, trauma, disappointment, rejection, I can
Mm.
still do these three things. So my system is tested for the worst of days. Now, I think a lot of times where people get this mixed up is they build these systems that only work when like all the moons are aligned and everybody's
Yeah.
in alignment and whatnot. And it's just like, wow, if we know the things that matter most and we make them matter most and it can be battle tested on a bad day, then you can hang in there for 10 years without a doubt.
Well, that's why I think that sometimes if we look at people who are high achievers, they're always looking for what's the hack to achieve sort
Yes.
of peak performance, right? But I don't think that's actually a useful thing to strive after because that's not reality.
Hmm.
So I think that you should elevate your baseline
Yeah.
so that your baseline is incredible, maybe 80, 85% of what your peak performance is, but know that you can consistently and reliably show up with your baseline effort that is 80, 85% on
Yeah,
the call, when you're writing an email, when you're doing a presentation. Like that's what works day in, day out when you're sick, when you're traveling, whatever.
exactly.
I think that people prepare their whole life to have this peak performance moment when, they feel perfect and they're not sick and their energy levels are right and the stars align, like you mentioned, and
Mhm.
they can show up and they can knock the presentation out of the park and they're like, oh, I killed it. But then you can't architect that environment every single time. So understand that you're human
Mhm.
and that's why you have to elevate your baseline. I mean, whether or not it's practice or whatever it
Yep.
is you're trying to accomplish, like you shouldn't bet on the fact that this is going to be the best thing you ever do. I
Yeah.
don't think that's a smart way to go through life, through business, through anything.
Yeah, I love that. In a way that we talk about that, I actually, as a scientist, I always get really curious about the data. And one of the things I can share with you is I measured my decision making process for
Hmm.
about 3 months while I was working on my new book, right? So I'm working on this book about hope and the science and the psychology of hope and living hope filled. I was measuring my decisions and I would be able to qualify whether or not a decision was like a quick decision, an instinct, kind of like just a gut go with it decision, or if I like calculated research really leaned into some of my decisions when it came to how I was showing up in my job, how like in my career, how I was showing up in my family. And I realized that when I was making just kind of quick decisions, my efficacy rating or how well it worked out for me rating was like 90%. So if I know that I can make
Mm,
on the fly decisions and 90% of the time I get it right, and I mitigate the risk in those 10%, knowing what
yeah,
themes or categories I have to be careful about,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, so essentially I'm playing poker, not chess. I don't need perfect knowledge. I don't need to know all of the pieces. I'm pretty good at throwing this as a hand of poker where there are variables that are outside of my control. But I'm confident enough, as you described, with your baseline of
Hmm.
the fact that I trust myself. I'm reliable. I know I make wise choices. Yeah, sometimes I get it wrong, but the majority of the time I get it right.
And I think that, and I love that. I love that idea. I think that you have to understand also what improves your baseline. So
Yes.
when I think about uh, something that's very real for me, I podcast for a living, right? So
Yes.
um, I can go back and watch my game tapes to be quite honest and see
Yes.
and see how I did and see where I fell flat. But when I do a podcast and I'm interviewing somebody, so some days I'll be tired, I'll be sick, but what elevates the baseline of a podcast? Maybe it's personal anecdotes or
Mhm.
stories or quotes or something that sort of takes the conversation up a notch and it gives it a little bit more value and it makes maybe the guest feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yes.
So I practice those. I memorize some things that I can
Yeah.
bring up on the fly. I'll also obviously do the research for the guest, and I'll go a little bit deeper than I think the average host would go, just because
Yeah.
I want to make sure that when I bring up points in their life, like it makes them feel comfortable, it makes them feel
Yes.
like I've done my homework as well. So there's a lot of
Totally.
things that I can do ahead of time both for the way that I present and show up on camera, but also for the way that I prep my show notes and prep my questions. So when I actually sit down with the guest, I could be feeling like garbage. I could have had a
Mhm.
bad sleep last night, but it's still to the world. It's not going to be to me. To
Yes.
me, I know my best. And sometimes, like as a high performer, like we're all this sort of type A
Yes.
personality where we get frustrated when things don't go right. I'll interview somebody and I'll be like, "Oh my god, that was so frustrating. They just flew in.
Yeah.
Like I wish I wasn't like a little bit under the weather, or I wish I
Yeah.
wasn't, I wish I got like another hour or two of sleep." But when I watch it back and then I also, I ask the audience, I ask people that are close to me that would trust me, give me very
Yes.
real, harsh, honest feedback.
Yeah.
Um, they're like, "No, this was great."
It's good.
So like you
Yep.
because again, I've done the work ahead of time. I've elevated my baseline personal performance. I've prepped. I mean, that's all these again, these are not complicated ideas, but I think that a lot of people just sort of like shoot from the hip
Yeah.
in life and they
Yeah.
don't prep and they just keep showing up hoping for a home run when that's not reality.
Mhm.
And they don't put the effort in before they have to put the effort in, right? That's
Yeah.
really it. Like a lot of the stuff that a lot of the personal anecdotes or stories or like clever little one liners I'll say on my podcast. These are things that I've thought about. These are things that I've tested. Like I don't really do much. Listen, I don't get data like you, but I
Okay.
have like a little bit of data. Okay, so so
I can help you with data. Data's the friend. It's
maybe, but I'll tell
useful.
you, I'll
It's
tell you, I'll
useful.
tell you what I do. Like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
content process, it's not complicated. I'll put out a whole bunch of different ideas on Threads or Twitter.
Yeah.
I'll see which ideas resonate with the
Mhm.
audience because again, I guess I'm a content scientist. I'm not assuming
Yeah.
that just because I think an idea is cool, that's where I
Yeah.
start. But I don't just assume because I think an idea is cool, the rest of the world thinks it's cool. I got to like see if
Yes.
my audience likes it. So I'll
Yeah.
put out 10 different ideas on Threads and Twitter. One of them will have outsized engagement for whatever
Yes.
reason. Just because of the way I wrote that idea, that
Yes.
resonated with the market, which is my audience. And
Yes.
it'll be like 30 likes, 20 likes, 30 likes, 50 likes, 100 likes, 10,000 likes. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
interesting data.
Yeah.
And then that story gets turned into a story that I do a solo podcast on. I'll
Mhm.
write a newsletter about that same idea. And then you'll hear that idea on a podcast because I know that idea resonates in that way. And
Mhm.
and then I'll have a whole bunch of these stories in my back pocket or a whole bunch of
Yes.
these ideas in my back pockets when I go on stage, when I speak,
Yeah.
even some of the ones that we're talking about right now. We're talking about
Yeah.
10-year, we're talking
Yeah.
about agency, we're talking
Yeah.
about internal versus external locus of control.
Yeah.
These are things that have resonated with people.
Totally.
Like for some reason, these ideas resonate more with people than any of the other 900 motivational or performance ideas that I've put out. So
Yes.
everything in life is about improving yourself, but improving yourself based on data. Like I'm talking about a content creator's perspective.
Yeah.
If I was working in a company and I felt that my presentations to my board or my presentations to my manager always fell flat,
Mm.
well, I would figure out why.
Yes.
I'd be researching and studying. I'd be like, why, even though I present good data and
Mhm.
the job that I do is good and the results are good, why do they never seem impressed?
Yes.
Maybe it's the way that I present the data. Maybe my deck's too long. Maybe there's too much text. Maybe I'm actually not selling myself as much as I should in the performance of my team or myself.
Yeah.
So you understand what achieves the desired result, and then that's the work you do before you have to show up for the game, basically.
Yeah. 100%. Oh my goodness. Okay, I could talk to you for days.
I have
I
no
have
doubt. That's what I
yeah, no,
said.
I know
We
we
could
said
do a
that at the beginning.
3-hour podcast.
Yeah. So I actually had a few like quick rapid fire
Go
questions
for it.
because I wanted, is that okay? Just to kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I
I'm
was
not in a rush. If you want to
there you
do
go.
more, be
There
my
were so
guest.
many things that I wanted to talk about. So I'll have to, we have to do this again. I hope soon because there's
Mm.
again, there's this whole other area that I wanted to ask you about. Okay,
You have to
this is
come
the
down to
one
Miami and we
I
can
would
record stuff in my studio.
I would in a heartbeat. We'll just find out when the Heat's playing, and we will make that work. And not the
Yeah.
Dolphins. God, those poor little Dolphins. I was sharing with Scott for folks listening. I was sharing with Scott before that. Folks know my Mama Boy weekend every year. The boys and I go and check out a NFL game and an NBA game, and yeah, so Miami is on the list. So we can make that happen.
Listen, I know you're in Canada, and I
Yes.
know that you're going to enjoy the snow for what are we? We're like November,
Yeah.
mid-November right now. You're going to enjoy it until December 26th. Maybe you'll
Exactly.
enjoy it until January 2nd, and then you
That's right.
got January, you got February, you got March,
Yeah.
you got a little bit of April where there's still snow and it's not
Yeah.
fun.
It's not fun.
So,
I love that. That's lived experience coming from a fellow Canadian who
yeah.
transplanted. Um, okay, so this is the question that I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on it, but what is an unpopular opinion about success that you stand by every time? But even though, and again, I know we've touched on that, but I'm
Mm,
curious if there's like one kind of practice, tool, or a habit that like people don't tend to like it, but
yeah.
if I'm a podcaster and I want to grow my audience, if I'm a content creator and I want to grow my newsletter. Like, what are those just like, you know what, if you focus on this, it's going to give you good startup. It's going to give you good
Well, I'll tell
traction.
you let's take it from both perspectives. We'll talk about the
Sure.
mindset and then we'll talk about sort of more tactical.
Okay.
So, the mindset around success, you'll hear a lot where people will say, you can be successful and have balance in your life. I'm a firm believer that, because this is again just speaking from lived experience, if you want to build anything great and meaningful, there will be periods of your life, there'll be seasons of your life where you have massive amounts of imbalance. And I
100%.
think that's just required.
Mhm.
So don't expect to, again, build a company. Don't expect to be a C-suite, VP, getting paid two, three, four, 500,000 plus a year if you don't put in reps. And there's not going to be a season of your life where there's going to be imbalance, where you're putting
Yeah.
in more effort and more work, and part of your personal life will suffer for that period, not forever,
Yeah.
but for a period.
For a
I think
season.
that's probably a very unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
Not again, not with the people who I interview, but
Yes.
with the person who is young saying, I want balance.
Mhm.
I want all the, the accolades. I want all the success. I want all the money, but I don't want to put in the effort when I'm young.
Yeah.
It's not reality.
I I love that you're highlighting that because you are absolutely right. And I even remember when I was still in the university, I was working with a student, a graduate student, and I gave her feedback on Friday and I said, "We're going to need
Mm,
this for Monday because we're presenting this to the committee on Monday." And she looked at me and she's like, "I don't do that on weekends. My weekends are mine." And it was one
yeah.
of those moments where I'm like, "Sister, I appreciate your attempt at life with work balance, but like where you are right now in this this doctoral program, like where you are right now
Mm,
in your master's program, you have to embrace the hustle. You have to be willing to work outside of these banker hours
yeah.
because if you want to get to the place where you have the freedom to be able to set schedules like that and you have the freedom to be able to prioritize like that, you got to earn it. Like you have to work for it. You don't get that at the beginning and expect on the other side of it. Now, I don't mean we need to like browbeat the students or like those young entrepreneurs. Like we're not like we have to grind them
No,
and
but
beat them down. It's like, turn over and burn them out, but we need to be honest. The fact that
yeah.
many of us have built this credibility, these careers, because we did do the reps, we did pay our dues. And again, I'm not suggesting we mistreat people,
No, no,
but
but you have
we
to understand you
have
got
to
to put in
push.
the, and also if you end up enjoying what you're doing, seriously enjoying what you're doing, like it does start to blend with your life.
Totally, it does.
And when I say blend with your life, I don't mean like anybody actually enjoys working on the weekends when they rather be with their family. But I'll tell you what it does mean. It could mean that you become so good at what you do that you get the luxury of being paid to travel to speak, or maybe you
Exactly.
are a C-suite in a company and you're getting paid to go all over the country. And then, yeah, you don't want to be working Saturday, Sunday, but maybe you are speaking Monday in a city that you've never spoken in and somebody's
Mhm.
paying you to go there. Well, maybe if you're really good at what you do, you can negotiate that they fly you out on Friday and you spend the weekend in a new city at a nice
Mhm.
hotel with your spouse. Because
Exactly.
that's my reality now. Like
Yes.
that is what happens. We just spent a week in Mission, Texas, speaking at a conference, and they brought us out, and I spoke for an hour, but I mean the rest of the week was like a little bit of a vacation.
Yeah.
So the work and the life start to blend if you really enjoy what you do.
Mhm.
But also for a period, I mean, like there was times when I wasn't getting paid. I was just working weekends and I was just doing whatever it took to build my brand and to post more
Yeah.
content and to, get another podcast episode out. Um, and I think that that's just sort of like the price of entry.
I
Um,
completely agree. Yeah.
I'll give you another sort of, I guess, tactical
Mhm.
thing for a content creator. Or I mean, this is going to apply to anybody. Please, whenever I take an idea, extrapolate it to whatever it is you're doing in your life. But know that I'll speak to this idea from the perspective of a content creator or a podcaster. Um, Whenever you start, whatever it is you're starting, podcast content in particular, it's going to suck. Like
Yeah.
it's just going to suck. Like again, sucking is also the price of entry. It's
That's
like
right.
speaking of unbalanced price of entry, sucking is also the price of
Yes.
entry. Like any content creator, any podcaster, their first episode is going to suck and is not going to be the same as their 100th or their 1,000th
Yeah.
episode, but that's just what is required to start. So
Yes.
this is just you putting in the reps. This is just you starting, you taking action, and it's okay because it doesn't need to be perfect at the beginning. You just have to,
Mhm.
like, that's not the goal you're trying to achieve. You're not trying to achieve perfection when you first start. When you
Yes.
first start, you're trying to just start.
Yeah.
That's
Get
the
it
goal.
moving.
That is
Yeah.
already a hard thing for a lot of people to do. Just
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
Once you start, you'll go through this period of the content kind of sucking. And
Mhm.
it's not just you, it's literally, not figuratively, literally
Yeah.
every content creator in the world goes through this sort of rocky uh, inception point. And if you don't trust me, you don't believe me, go to any content creator's YouTube.
Yes.
Scroll, if they've left their videos up from the
Yeah.
beginning, go to
Yeah.
oldest and
All of
look
it.
at what their first video is.
Yeah.
It's just, this is just the price of entry.
Yeah.
So start, your content's going to suck. You're going to put in reps, even when your content's not so great. And through the process of starting, sucking, putting in reps, iterating, and improving, you'll become a good podcaster, content
Mhm.
creator, entrepreneur, whatever.
Yeah.
The lesson is the same for the entrepreneur. Like if you start a company, the company you start day one is not going to be the company that exists in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. It's going to be
Exactly.
radically different, and it's going to
Yeah.
be much better. It's always going to be much better. We're all smart people. We're all going to move in the right direction. We're all gonna put our egos aside and look at the
Yeah.
data and keep optimizing and improving. That's what life is. That's what
Yeah.
makes it so fun.
Yeah.
But know that when you first start anything, it's gonna suck, and that's okay.
100%. Yeah. And we embrace that suck. And I love when I scroll back or I look back on some of my early stuff, I actually take that degree of cringiness as such a sign of growth. I'm
It
like, if
is.
you look at your early stuff and you are not cringing and you're not thinking, for the love of Jesus, why did not somebody
Yeah.
not stop me? Or hasn't somebody said, take this down? I leave that stuff there as like, wow, there's growth, right? Because again,
Mhm.
if you're not cringing at what you were doing last year compared to this year, like you're like you're staying in the same league. And
Yeah,
again, this is
exactly.
about these evolutions, about this improvement. So, holy goodness, Scott, I am just so appreciative for you
Thank you for
showing up for
having
this
me on.
conversation. Like you are a big deal. And the fact that you showed up to have this conversation, it means so much to me. And to find out that you are a fellow Canadian, Ottawa area, Toronto, like, oh my goodness, I
It's a small world.
love that we found
Very
one
small world.
another
And
in
and
a
and
digital
first of all,
space.
your content's incredible, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you giving me a chance to come on and talk to your audience. This has been really fun, so thank you.
Well, thank you. And I hope we can have many more conversations.
Yes.
And if there is just, again, just in closing to land this plane, if there is one thing right now that is getting you fired up, excited about the
Mm.
future, like what's the one thing right now that you are looking forward to say, oh gosh, better days are ahead. I am looking forward to this thing that's out there.
Because I'm excited about the fact that the barrier to entry to anything is zero.
Oh,
Like,
I like that.
you can just do anything.
Yeah.
You can start a company. You can go lose weight. You can
Yeah.
you can you can you can do whatever you want. You can start a podcast. The barrier to entry is zero. Like,
So good.
access to information is everywhere. It's all free,
Yeah.
and not just access to information. That alone, it should be enough for somebody to get started. But
Yeah.
now there's no more gatekeepers, right? There's zero gatekeepers. So if I wanted to be on air talent 30 years ago, I probably would have had to work my way up through like a news
Yeah.
organization, and then somebody finally gives me a shot. Or I could be a famous movie star, and then finally I get to start a podcast.
Hmm.
Like, there's only so many ways that I can actually get media distribution because there's
Yes.
gatekeepers. Now there's no more gatekeepers. I can just start. The technology has basically made it so that it's virtually free.
Yes.
And with the advent of I can not only start myself and be a solopreneur, or start myself and be a solo content creator. Now I can actually build a team
Hmm.
of agents, of AI people that can, take my input and 10x it.
Yes.
So whatever you want to achieve and accomplish, like, we are in the golden age of entrepreneurship, of creators. Like, there's so much opportunity, and gatekeepers don't exist. There is no barrier to entry, and that gets me super excited, because anybody who takes advantage of this, like, these are my people. So
I love that. Well, my friend Scott, thank you. Thank you. I wish you continued success and excellence. And I'm really glad we are connecting today. So thanks for being here.
thank you.
Thank you for spending time with me on this episode of Life by Design. I appreciate if you have a moment to pay this forward, share it with someone who you think might benefit from the ideas shared in this episode. If you're feeling so inspired, please also rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.